Booktube. Well, the meteorologists for once were right, and a great wave of relief has washed into Boston. The sodden, wet blanket of 95% humidity has completely lifted. So although it's nice and summertime warm outside, it's you can breathe. It's not like having your head wrapped in a towel. So I thought we'd celebrate with a mail haul, although I admit that is completely facile since if the humidity hadn't lifted, we would be commiserating with a mail haul. We can just mail haul all the time. So I've got a few packages here, and it ends in a box, and the box has a penguin stamped on it. So Steve is optimistic. So let's see what this first one is. Okay, the first one is totally new to me. Did not request it, do not recognize it. It's the Diaries of Emilio Renzi, The Formative Years by Riccardo Piglia. This is by Restless Books, and it is a highly anticipated autobiographical life's work from the visionary Argentine novelist who brought Latin American letters out of Borges' shadow and into the postmodern era, bookended by Roberto Bolaño and David Foster Wallace. I'm not sure I'd want to be bookended by either one of them. They're gold for a novelist, or I'm sure that this is. Well, I shouldn't insta judge now, should I? I'm sure that when I read in the same sentence David Foster Wallace and autobiographical life's work, I immediately assume there's not one word of verifiable truth anywhere in this alleged work of autobiography. But I could be wrong. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. I've got Karl Ove Nosgaard on the mind. That's why. Anyway, it's a giant of contemporary Latin American literature, Argentine novelist Ricardo Piglia is known for stories, novels, operas, screenplays, and essays, but his magnum opus is one that he poured into 327 secret notebooks over nearly 6 decades, in which he imagined himself as his literary alter ego, Emilio Renzi. How is that not fiction? Like Philip Roth's Nathan Zuckerman, Renzi stars in many of his creators' works, but Piglia invented him in 1957, long before his 1981 novel about Argentina's dirty war, Artificial Respiration, made Renzi and Piglia famous. In the novels, Renzi is a detective. In the notebooks that comprise the diaries of Emilio Renzi, he's something more complex, a multi-layered reconstruction of the self that the reader, performing her own detective work, teases out of these intricate, illuminating pages. So of course, I was completely thrown by the compulsory gun to your head military correctness of that her, the reader, her. We're talking about a man, a male writer, writing about a male alter ego. And I also am a man. and I don't know where the point is, but that's all right. That's better than they or them, I suppose. I just so actually that description. Comes out from Restless Books. When does this come out? In November, and it's translated from the Spanish by Robert Kroll. And that description actually started to intrigue me, regardless of what the publisher or the publicity material decides to call the book. That interaction of real person and fictional alter ego, fictionalized self, started to intrigue me. But if he was working on this for, what did it say? 327 secret notebooks? Then surely this is not the whole thing. In 2011, when Piglia learned he had a fatal illness, he raced to complete his mysterious masterwork as rumors about the book intensified among his many fans. First released in Spanish as a trilogy amid tremendous applause, The Diaries of Emilio Renzi cements Piglia's place in the global canon. Okay, so he died this year. And what I want to know from those of you in Spain is, do you think there's any way that this is the whole trilogy? I don't imagine that it is. But it says that the 2015 original publication was this. It had this exact title. It had no number or anything like that. Oh, it's going to be another example where I'm going to go to the publisher. I'm going to go to Restless Books and ask them if they can get me somehow uh, a copy of the 2015 original. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I mean, what so I distrust translations anyway. I distrust them more with every passing year. But with this, it sounds like it's rife with potential for this reading experience to be completely different from the 2015 reading experience that Spanish readers had, and I don't want that. I'm perfectly happy to read this and assess it on its own merits as an English work, but I want to know what I'm talking about too. So I will have to I'll have to email Simon and Schuster and see what they can do. But anyway, that's okay. That's fairly interesting. All right, so we'll move on to the next one here. Let's see here. I don't know why a little detail like that bothers me. Of course, I don't care what impersonal pronoun anybody uses. I think I do know why that she bothers me. It's because I submitted a piece once years ago. I don't even remember how. It must have been 6 or 7 years ago. I submitted a piece to an editor much, much younger than I am. A good venue, nice long, gave me plenty of elbow room. In fact, didn't give me an upper limit to review some new work in translation, and I had a blast. I wrote, I think, 2,700 words. I had a blast doing it, and I roamed all over creation in the course of the review, and then I submitted it to him, and he got back to me in due time and said, this is really, really good. This is really, really engaging. I made almost no edits, and they were only surface edits. Take a look. They're in boldface on the document that I'm attaching. And I opened the document, and he changed at a couple of points, maybe 2 or 3 points in the course of that 2,700 words. I made reference to the standard reference. The reader will not really understand this part of the book unless he's conversant in medieval England. And at every point that I did that, he changed it to unless she's conversant with medieval England. And my first reaction before I responded to him was that I don't care. Of course, it doesn't matter. And then my second reaction, the one that actually made it into a fairly peppy email, was do your virtue signaling on your own time. Don't do it in my prose. I don't want to do that, or I would have done it. And that's, of course, what it is. Since I've read your work, your published work, every single word of it, including the blog you think you deleted. And you didn't do it until 2010, when all of a sudden it became politically correct, politically expedient for you to do it. In other words, you're a friggin' hypocrite. And if you want to do that in your own work, feel free, but don't do it in mine. I was doing it unthinkingly as just adhering to 2,000 years of precedent. Now, maybe that's an argument not to do it. Maybe the fact that you're doing this does exclude some of your readers. Okay, fine. But you don't tell me to do it. You don't take me into the little room across the hall from the classroom and give me a little lecture on what I should or shouldn't do. You or a sprat who's like 20 years old. Maybe that's why it bothers me. Let's just move on. So this next one is from Open Letter Press. They are not open letters, although there's still confusion to this day because they're still going strong, and so are we. From the University of Rochester, and they are the press that does their great translated literature outreach. They're absolutely fantastic. I've said on this video a couple of times, if Open Letter Press were a bunch of jerks, then it would be much easier to hate them for the fact that we have almost the same name. But instead, I can't hate them at all because they do good work. And this is Island of Point Nemo by Jean-Marie Blas de Roble. Goodness gracious. This is translated from the French by Hannah Shute. I probably massacred that name. And it is a delightful compilation reminiscent of golden age of detective fiction, an international voyage worthy of Jules Verne and the suspense and pace of a Haruki Murakami thriller. If there has ever been any suspense in anything that Haruki Murakami has ever written, I'm the Shah of Persia. He could write an urgent note for help, I'm being kidnapped, in his own blood, and it would be boring. The novel opens on a battlefield. While Alexander the Great sleeps, his Macedonian infantry is arranged in phalanx formation, ready to take on the Persian army. At this moment, the battle has reached a crucial juncture, and Alexander must make a decision: pursue his enemy Darius, the commander of the Persian cavalry, or rescue his compatriot Parmenion, currently at the mercy of the enemy's assault. The true mastermind of this battle is, in fact, a dozing Frenchman by the name of Monsieur Cantarel, and his infantry uh, are toy figurines arranged in precise lines on his bedroom floor. Anticlimactic, perhaps? Not at all. Battles, allegiances, and whimsical revelations are all occurring themes in this first storyline of the island of Point Nemo, a globe-trotting epic at which Cantarell is the focal point. Monsieur Cantarell is okay. All right, so this comes out in paperback. It's a paperback original. It comes out in mid-August. Uh, okay, all right. So none of that opening scenario, the scenario that Mr. Cantarell is doing on his game set, none of it makes any sense. So it doesn't correspond to history, and that of course makes me run to my usual refrain of what is this then? But maybe it's all whimsical. There's very little that makes Steve want to drown a kitten faster than when fiction is whimsical, but sometimes it's done well, so I'll give it a try. It's certainly a contentious little mail haul, isn't it? Let's move on to this next one here. Okay, all right. Okay, this next one I got a little advance. I got a heads up about it from the publisher. It's The Secret Life by Andrew O'Hagan. This is the advanced copy. It comes out in October, and I let's see what it is. What does it mean when your very sense of self becomes, to borrow a term from the tech world, disrupted? Perhaps it takes a novelist, an inventor of selves, armed with the tools of a trenchant reporter, to find an answer. In The Secret Life, novelist and journalist Andrew O'Hagan takes up that challenge in 3 unforgettable pieces of literary reportage. So this is not a novel. Together, these essays bring us to the weirder fringes of a life in a digital world, while also casting light on our shared predicaments. O'Hagan considers problems of power, democracy, and the very notion of self through profiles of 3 remarkable characters who straddle the porous border between cyberspace and IRL. Ghosting introduces us to the beguiling and divisive WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, whose autobiography the author agrees to ghostwrite with unforeseen and unforgettable consequences. Okay, and that piece was done already, right? That was in Vanity Fair like years ago, and it was gripping. I can't remember if it was Vanity Fair or not. It might have been something else. It might have been Harper's or something else. But I remember it being absolutely riveting. Just a fantastic piece. So that could be in this collection unaltered, and that would be worth it for me, because I don't have that excerpt anymore. I pulled it out of the magazine, underlined it, covered it in food stains, and put it somewhere, and I'm sure I've since thrown it away. So if that, actually, let's find out. Because if that's in here, that would be great. That okay. The publication, the copyright material doesn't say, and it should. And I've noticed they tend not to anymore. They tend not to say anymore because they're just separate from the putting together of the rest of the book. So you have to go to the author's preface and hope that maybe he says so, or she says so. But no. So, okay, let's go to the acknowledgments. Okay, London Review of Books. No, he thanks a whole bunch of people. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. I feel certain that this piece on Julian Assange has appeared already. And if it has, it's the duty of the book to say so, and to say when and where, and to thank the original publication. Somewhere in here, maybe it does, but it ought to be immediate. But anyway, let's go on here. The invention of Ronnie Pin finds the author using the actual identity of a deceased young man to construct an entirely new one in cyberspace, leading him on a journey deep into the web's darkest realms. And The Satoshi Affair chronicles the strange case of Craig White, the Australian web developer who may or may not be the mysterious inventor of Bitcoin, and who may or may not be willing or even able to reveal the truth. Okay, I feel certain that I've read that as well. I guess I'll just have to research. Uh, I'll just have to research whether or not. Okay, yeah, all right. So the pub material says that the original essay, the original version of the Julian Assange essay, was in the London Review of Books. So that's where I read that one. And maybe, maybe the Bitcoin thing. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else's story, or maybe it appeared somewhere else, and I just have to bore through here to find out. Uh, but anyway, this could be really good. Andrew Hagen's a really talented writer, and this comes out in the fall, so uh, I have time to square it away and figure out what it is. Then we've got this thing. It's heavy, so that's encouraging. Let's see here. Could be something. Oh, okay, very good. All right. This is due in mid-July. This is the finished copy of the University of Chicago Press's new biography of Henry David Thoreau. And this is by Laura Dassall Walls, who is obligatorily posing on the cover at Walden Pond. She is the William P. and Hazel B. White Professor of English at the University of Notre Dame. She has a wise face. I have a thing with author photos because they're never on the advanced copies of books that I get. So one of the first things I always look at in the finished copy, just to see who's telling me the story. And she has a wise face. I don't think she. I could, of course, be wrong. Physiognomy is a shame. Phrenology has gone out of fashion. But she strikes me, looking at her, she strikes me that she won't make any mistakes, research-wise, and that's important in a work of nonfiction or especially biography. So I think I may have talked about this on this channel before, but this is a big new biography of Thoreau. There is much more to Thoreau than his brief experiment at living on Walden Pond. A member of the vibrant intellectual circle centered on his neighbor, Ralph Waldo Emerson, he was also an ardent naturalist, manual laborer, and inventor, a radical political activist, and more. Many books have taken up various aspects of Thoreau's character and achievements, but as Laura Dassall Walls points out, Thoreau has never been captured between covers. He was too quixotic, mischievous, and many-sided. 200 years after his birth and 2 generations after the last full-scale biography, Walls renews Henry David Thoreau for us all in his profound, inspiring complexity. Thoreau has never been captured between covers? I have read at least 15 biographies of Henry David Thoreau, and 2 or 3 of them have been blindingly excellent. The 2 or 3 of them this author must have had on her nightstand for months. Is she actually claiming they weren't good? They were incomplete? And that hers is not? That's astonishing. Oh, it's got a lot of pictures. Wow. That's another thing you don't get with advanced copies. You don't always get the artwork. And this has a big, thick inset of black and white pictures. Great. Well, that's a big claim. And unlike a lot of times you read the publicity material on the dust jacket of a book and you think, well, aren't you crawling out a little far on the branch? But that's a direct quote from the author. That's not some publicist saying this has never been done before. She's quoted as saying Thoreau has never been captured between covers. That's a tall order. And I did not read the advanced copy of this book. Well, I got it, but I didn't read it. It's got tons of the usual Kirkus Review and Publishers Weekly. They both gave it star reviews. They get these things early. They get the industry reviews get them early, specifically because you have the 2 routes. You can send a galley copy early to Publishers Weekly or Library Journal or Kirkus and get them to review it right away. And you can send a galley copy to a poobah or a name or a historian and hope that they get a blurb back to you in time, but they've got a lot to read and they might not feel like it. That's the only way that you're going to get advanced drum beating going, because if you send the advanced copy to a review journal, which of course you will also do, they're not going to run a review before the book appears. So they're not really going to be able to help you except online. for a very high profile book, not something like this, but like a brand new novel by a reclusive novelist, the Times and the Wall Street Journal will run a review as soon as possible, very close to its release date or a little before, and they'll be competing with each other to see who can get the review in first. It's just an unspoken rule of etiquette that you don't want to be too far ahead of time. And when that happens, if it's a good review, the publisher will swoop right in, grab out a blurb, and put it on the book's publicity material online. So at least doesn't that good, and then of course it'll be on the paperback. But otherwise, your avenues are very limited. You can send it to somebody and hope that they will write back with a blurb, or you can send it to the standard raft. There's like 5 or 6 industry review organs. They just do the 350-page review, or 350-word review. They're not doing. There's no artistry involved. They're just telling you about the book and then telling you what their rating is, and that helps a little. And the reviewers, I know quite a few of them for all of those journals, and I am one, of course, for Kirkus. And they're not glad-handed with their starred reviews. You have to earn that, and they're also, contrary to what a lot of people I've talked to might think, they're not told what to give a starred review to. They're not coerced in any way by their editors. They have to. The book has to earn it, and so that actually means something. Great. So this is fantastic. I will get to this right away. I can't tell. The cover is an 1856 daguerreotype of Thoreau. Of it, you might have seen woodcuts of it. Thing that I'm noticing on the cover, and I can't tell if the University of Chicago Press maybe did this to it, or if I have somehow missed this detail the whole time, and I don't know if it's going to come out on camera. You've got the daguerreotype, right? You've got the washed out sepia tones. And Henry David Thoreau's eyes are green. They're very noticeably green. And I don't know if I've ever noticed that before. And is it accurate? Or was it done for this cover? Except none of the rest of the cover looks like anything was done to it at all. Okay. These are the kinds of things that an idle old coot occupies his time with. I want to find out. So the first thing I'm going to do is fire off an email to the publicist for this book, who's a friend of mine and who's probably nerdy enough to think it's a good question. But I'm going to want to know. I'm going to want to know, has that always been true? Have I been looking at daguerreotypes of him from 1856 this whole time and missed green eyes? Were daguerreotypes in 1856 even capable of registering if you had green eyes? I don't know, one way or another. And if they weren't, then who's the smart aleck who put green eyes on the cover of this book? But anyway, what a psychotherapy this review has been. Let's finish up with the box. Who knows what this will be? This is the one with Penguin on it, but Penguin is they're a big publishing house. They don't just do Penguin Classics. Now, see, this is something that I did not request. Good for Penguin doing it. Okay, this is from the Prometheus books. This is from Prometheus books. Are they? I always forget if they're an imprint of Penguin. As to why there would be penguins on the box. Are they an imprint of Penguin books? I should know this instead of wasting time on a video. I don't really see that they are. Maybe they just had a Penguin books box lying around. But anyway, this is a political biography of Mahmoud Abbas. This is called The Last Palestinian. The Rise and Reign of Mahmoud Abbas, who rose to prominence as a top Palestinian negotiator, became the leader of his nation, and then tragically failed to negotiate a peace agreement. This is the first book in English that focuses on one of the most important fixtures in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Filled with new details and based on interviews with key figures in Ramallah, Jerusalem, and Washington, this book weaves together a fascinating story that will interest both veteran observers of the conflict and readers new to the Israeli-Palestinian history. The authors, one a research fellow at the nonpartisan Washington think tank and the other an award-winning diplomatic correspondent for Israel's largest news website, tell the inside story of Abbas's complicated multi-decade relationship with America, Israel, and his own people. They trace his upbringing in Galilee, his family's escape from the 1948 Israeli-Arab War, and his education abroad. They chart his rise to prominence as a pivotal actor in the Oslo peace process of the 1990s, and his unsuccessful attempt to offer a non-violent alternative to the Second Intifada. And you know what's missing. You're not supposed to notice because that's very skillfully written, but you notice what's missing there. If you think about it for a second, you see it in Heartbeat. It's filled with new details and based on interviews with key figures in Ramallah, Jerusalem, and Washington. It's written by an American and an Israeli, and they tell the Abbas's biography. What's missing from that? Interviews with Abbas himself, talking with the subject who's alive of their book. So I don't know. I don't know what that could still be in here. You'd think if they talked to him that it would be in the publicity material. So I'm betting they didn't. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It'll still be a fascinating book. This is the first book in English, it said. So this has not had a previous Israeli publication? No, it hasn't. Wow. Okay. And there he is. There he is on the cover. Wow. So, okay. So we have two very different biographies. Good. Fantastic. So this comes out in mid-July. Nice to know that the flow of biographies is continuing for July. That's good. And that's it. So we have two very different biographies. We have The Last Palestinian, and then Henry David Thoreau, new biography of Henry David Thoreau. Then The Secret Life, which is a collection. It sounds to me like it's a collection of 3 longer periodical pieces that Andrew Hagen wrote earlier about various aspects of online life. I don't get the impression that any of this is original. Not that that matters, because your audience is going to be vastly bigger for a book than it is for the London Review of Books. So I'll have to check and see the bona fides. And then The Island of Point Nemo by a French writer that I'd really kind of like to hear from those of you in France about. I've actually quite a few requests here. I would love to hear from those of you in Palestine. I would love to hear your thoughts on Abbas, and also any books that you might be able to recommend. And Andrew Hagen I can handle on my own, but this person, Jean-Marie Blas de Roble, in France, I would love to hear about this person, and how this person figures in bookstores and book reviews and the book life of the country. And the same thing with this thing. The same thing with the first book we saw, The Diaries of Emilio Renzi by Riccardo Piglia. Same thing with that. I would love to know more about this guy and where he stands in literature. I will do a lot of this due diligence on my own, but I've found that it's incredibly inviting to simply ask, because I've got viewers all over the world who are, bookish and can teach me a lot. So feel free to sound off on. You can sound off on anything, but the Andrew Hagen, especially the Henry Thoreau, I'm pretty good. Anyway, that's our very, a very provocative mail haul. I don't know. I like it. I like the feel. But anyway, there you go. So that's 5 books, and you'll notice that's 5 books, and that was 30 minutes. So this business of can Steve do an hour-long video? Can Steve not do an hour-long video? Is starting to be the question. But anyway, I'll wrap it up there, and I'll see you soon. Thank you, Book 2.